and it's so interesting because bringing it to today.
Yeah.
Let's zoom forward to today.
Okay.
It's so fascinating because some of these parallels are just startling because we think about the armies and how these people take power back in the day. You mentioned like property and standing and like political maneuvering. We see today, and it's kind of instead of armies, we've got wealth.
Yeah.
We have a consolidated amount of wealth.
Yeah.
More wealth than we've ever seen before. I mean, we were talking about before. There's people with hundreds of billions of pounds. Like that's not even enough money physically to see.
Yeah.
It's all in stocks and all these, and it's also in influence.
Yeah.
So like these ideas of these people, we have Caesars nowadays crossing the Rubicon River through wealth, through influence, through being able to lobby and through being able to give so much money to political campaigns and just if I give this money, if I just use my influence, my media corporation to prop you up and bit of propaganda here, a bit of fake news here.
Yeah.
I can make you the president by just making your campaign better than others.
Yeah.
So it makes me ask the question then, right? Which is better? I mean, we'll get into like the systems and how terrible both are, and obviously how the influences and how our modern day kind of like it's also struggling in his own ways.
Yeah.
But what do you think is better? Is it better to have a system which can be corrupted for influence, or a system which you need an army to actually make a difference in it?
Ooh, I mean, wow, because ultimately I feel you always, if you really want to take over something, you're going to need an army no matter what. Money is great. And,
yes.
We've used money for thousands of years as a means to convey value, I guess. But ultimately, you can't kill someone with a $1 bill.
Just throw enough coins at them.
Yeah, exactly. At some point, someone's gonna say no, and someone will be able to resist the money.
Yeah.
And then you're gonna need soldiers. And that's the thing. In our current system, in many current systems, corruption is possible, and it's in some cases very legal through lobbying and other stuff, and that's bad. Obviously, people exploit this, and people manage to make the lives of other people significantly worse just through paying enough money. And as bad as that is, we have remedies for that. Remedies that actually don't necessitate that all of us pick up arms and throw away our lives on some battlefield, right? Right now, we can still make a difference, and we can still change the ways in which money influences our politics. We can either limit the amounts of money people can have, or we can illegalize, I guess that's the word, stuff like lobbying and campaign donations and all this kinds of stuff. That's the thing about institutions and democracies and whatever. We were talking about how institutions failed in Rome, how the tribunes were exploited or whatever. Yeah, stuff becomes less useful, stuff breaks over time. You can then yourself make the decision of, okay, am I just going to let it break, and am I just going to let it come down to who's got the bigger army? Or maybe we should come up with a new system. Maybe we should come up with new institutions that actually address these issues that we're facing. Every state has weak points. Every state has positions in which one person can accumulate much more power than any other person. Right now, the people who can do that in our society are the people at the top of massive companies who accrue unbelievable amounts of wealth, right? However, this exploits only works for as long as we allow it to work. It will stop working the moment a sufficient amount of people comes together, the moment we reach a critical mass, and the moment we decide, okay, actually that's not how we want to live. Because all these systems, they're made by us, and they can be changed just as easily. So I would always prefer to live in a society that, I guess, is currently being manipulated, because you can still fix that.
Yes.
Rather than going out on a battlefield and, it's a roll of a dice whether you make it out or not.
Yeah, absolutely. And the winners aren't even the most righteous sometimes on the battlefield. Okay, 2 points on that then.
Yeah.
First point is that I do agree with you. We have checkpoints and balances to actually help us, make these changes.
Yeah.
But it kind of feels like, just like how it was in Rome, the people that are actually going to make these changes are not incentivized to make those changes because they're in positions of power already. You understand? So the people in power, they're not feeling the same kind of pressing, the need of what the system is actually doing to the people at the bottom. So we might tell them actually we want to vote them out, but it's like, it's that illusion of like you got two parties. You pop it on the left, or pop it on the right. It's like to get to that level where the change is actually going to be able to help the people at the bottom who are actually struggling. There is so much checkpoints you have to go through, so much and you do get sometimes, you get one person who's actually genuinely real, genuinely wants to make change. But as we've seen many, many times, the people's champion usually gets maneuvered by the politics at the high level, because when you get to the high level, do those people that are already there for however long, people who've been in that party for so long, do they agree with your politics? And it kind of feels to me now that we often get people that are in power only because they kind of carry on the status quo of what came before. In some way, shape or form. We talk about this a lot, is that if we have someone truly radical to come in that actually wants to do good, will that person survive? Like, will that person be hated 50% and loved 50%? Would they be able to even make a change? Because to be able to say, I'm 100%, this is what I care about good, and I care about making these changes. You have to be so emotionally resilient and just mentally I don't care about anything else, to actually make that change. So first question is that even possible to have that kind of idea and those kind of people to come in? And then it's on that, after you answer the question, what do you think are some of the biggest weak points in the systems that we have? What do you think, as you see out systems that we have today, are some of the places that you think, we're going to struggle here?
I mean, your question lines up so perfectly with the story of Tiberius Gracchus. I know we're in the present tense now, but it's just so perfectly fitting since we're already talking about Rome. So Tiberius Gracchus wanted to change Rome. He lived, bloody hell, don't let me forget this, somewhere in the late 2nd century of Rome. So like almost when the Republic started to fall. I think he was active before the Marian reforms. Sorry, I'm always terrible with dates, which makes me terrible. But
first of all, I don't know any of these days. So,
but in any case, Tiberius Gracchus realized there is a problem in Rome. He realized that the people with small properties couldn't compete anymore with the people with large properties, the people with no properties as well, because the large property owners bought more and more land. They could afford more and more land. They had slaves as well, so they didn't have to pay wages. So they would economically push out anyone with smaller properties, and they wouldn't hire some of the propertyless classes to work their land because they had the slaves already, right? So Tiberius Gracchus was like, oh no, this is terrible, because now Roman people can't live Roman lives anymore. Instead, they're being pushed into poverty, and the masses will suffer. Everyone will suffer, other than like these very rich, very large landowners. So he wanted to propose a law to limit the amount of land anyone can possess, and to kind of like split up the land that large landowners already had, and distribute it again for the Romans. So that was obviously very controversial, because the large landowners were the senators, the already very powerful and influential people in politics. And usually like the consuls and the other magistrates in Rome, those were also noblemen. Those were also very wealthy men, because I don't think that any of these offices paid a wage. And if you wanted to have a campaign, you had to pay for it yourself. So you had to be very wealthy to do this in the first place, right? So Tiberius wanted to push this through. Tiberius then became a tribune to do that. Everybody hated it. Everybody like in power was like, F this guy, he's the worst. Let's stop him. They tried all kinds of stuff. They tried to bribe other tribunes who were in office at the same time to veto him. But Tiberius somehow always managed to come out on top and like beat these guys out. Like I think there was one guy who vetoed him, and then Tiberius had him voted out of office by the assembly. That was how like much the people were behind him and how popular his proposition was. Then he finally passed this bill, the land redistribution bill, and okay, so this is where it gets kind of dicey, because now you could either say, okay, he achieved this goal, wash your hands and go home, bro. Like, like this is well done, happy story, good story about like social change. But Tiberius was of the opinion that this was so controversial among all the powerful people in Rome that he didn't think that his law would make it very far. He thought people would try to repeal it, try to like write another law to kind of like counteract this. So he decided that he wanted to stay in office for another term. So he wanted to be re-elected, which in Rome was like a big faux pas. Like they didn't have re-elections. Like if you wanted to be consul again, I mean, I guess that was possible, but you would wait a few years. Like you don't get an immediate second term because that just wasn't how things were done. It wasn't illegal though, but like it was like it was like on the edge, right? So he wanted to be re-elected. He sought re-election. The people were willing to re-elect him, but the senators were so outraged and so upset. Maybe they were upset because they thought it was unconstitutional to be elected twice. Maybe they were upset because they genuinely wanted to repeal that law and didn't want him to be in power anymore. So they banded together, broke off a bunch of wooden chair legs, and killed him. Like they literally came in a crowd onto Capitol Hill where the election was held and clubbed him to death. So you were...
That's insane.
It's insane, right?
Like what? Can you imagine people in a parliament just taking chairs and beating someone to death? You're supposed to be like... sorry.
I guess to their credit, they tried first to go to the consul and have the consul to like arrest him. But when the consul didn't arrest him, they decided to take things into their own hand. Yes, MPs, I guess. Literally MPs going out and killing someone. Which like is crazy. And it's kind of like, it goes into your point of like, okay, radical people trying to make radical change will face so much opposition.
Absolutely.
Almost like literally to the bitter end, right? The thing is though, all the powerful people who are incentivized to like keep things as they are, all the powerful people for the thing, who are, for whom the system is working, they're very few. I mean, even though the senators were enough to kill Tiberius, like the senators are not enough to kill every single lower class citizen in Rome, especially since that was the by far largest demographic, right? And yeah, sure, I mean, I guess they were technically in control of the armies, but then again, after the Marian reforms, a lot of lower class citizens were part of the army. So the thing is, when a group bands together, a group of a common interest, even if they're propertyless, even if they're lower class, if the group is sufficiently large enough, they can have safety in numbers and they can topple entire regimes. It has happened over and over again. It's happened in France, it happened in a lot of Middle Eastern Arabian countries during the Arabic Spring, I guess that's what it was called. If enough people band together, they can topple anything because systems of governance they don't really exist. They only exist in people's heads and they only exist on like black and white pages.
Absolutely.
So none of this is written in stone. None of this is divine law that is enforced by like some cosmic power.
Yeah. It doesn't go against physics to just change it. You can't just make a difference. Yeah.
Like if you don't participate in the system and if the majority of people don't decide not to participate in something, then it doesn't exist anymore.
But see, like there's a tension with that too because you are right.
Yeah.
If you don't participate in the corruption, then you can maybe kind of find a way to just turn it good again. Yeah. But it seems to me like seems like they're woefully making us like ambivalent or like less motivated to pay attention in politics because so much stuff is happening and you see like it's a record like number of people not voting, a record number of people just being disassociated with politics, and then you're seeing that there's a saying like the price good men pay for not being involved in things is to be ruled by evil men. It's like it kind of feels like if you choose not to do it, what they will do is that they'll give them more reason to actually keep passing these laws because you don't care anyway, then I'm going to do whatever I want. So there's that tension of like but then you are right also because like these systems, they're just ideas, and they're just ideas in people's head. They're held together by the participation of people, by people participating and actually making a difference. Yeah,
I think you bring up a really good point of like, okay, people are kind of disincentivized from participating anyways, and like, if everybody doesn't participate, okay, but if everybody then just stays home in their beds, then nothing's going to change anyways. And I guess that's the point where it comes to, okay, it's not enough to just not participate. You have to organize. You have to come together as groups, as a people, as an entire populace to change something, to make something better. And I'm not even saying through like votes. I mean, you got me your camera, you're saying all this stuff, but like...
I'm here too, so if they're coming for us, they're coming for both of us.
Like, if the system is broken, then you can't look within the system for a solution. You have to, you know, like if
Absolutely, yeah, you're right.
if you organize and stuff,
Yeah, you have to create new systems.
yeah, your goal can't be to win an election or like to get enough votes together. Your goal has to be, I'm going to bring enough people so that we can make a new election. So we can make a new system, a new institution that'll have to be recognized because just so many people want it, right? And anybody can do this. You don't need to go to your local council or whatever. You don't need to like go vote or like, you know, get a degree or whatever. You just need to get a bunch of people together in your basement. You know?
Absolutely.
Or maybe somewhere else than your basement because
it's always in your basement. They're gonna know. Yeah, indeed, the revolution will be televised on a podcast.
To be clear, I'm not really talking about revolution, more like reform from the bottom up. You know,
Reform from the bottom up.
you don't need to behead anyone. Okay, no violence.
No violence. Okay, so let's wrap it up. I'm fascinated by how, and I think the name of the episode was "How Do Empires Fall."
Yeah.
So we looked at Rome, and I think you made so many good points about Rome fell. And I think the crux of the issue is that they fell from within. It was the systems and how they reacted to within, and obviously extraneous stuff, but also how Rome like reacted to those things that made it fall. We're looking at our current empire, looking at our current situation. Are we suffering from the same thing? Is it a thing where empires have to fall from within to fall from without? It's like, you know, like are we at a stage where our inability to get along, our inability to, you know, stamp out corruption, or our kind of like the disparaging gap and ever-growing gap of wealth distribution of these people being so rich that they kind of like oppress the poor in like just through influence and making decisions and think they can rule the poor through just like, oh, I know what's good for you. Yeah. Is that kind of mentality, is that what's actually going to crumble our empire from within?
I mean, look,